So let's look at what is a computer. So on this slide here, all the devices you see are computers. Some are more specialized than others, but they're all computers. So what is a computer? A computer is a general purpose device that can be programmed to carry out a set of arithmetic or logical operations automatically. So this sequence of operations it carries out is called a computer program. And computer programs can be changed any way we want. And in this way, a computer can solve many different problems. So all the computers we know today are digital electronic computers based on microprocessors, but there was a time when computers were mechanical devices. So if we look at what computers do, computers basically store and process data to generate useful information. So here we see data goes into the computer and information comes out. So data is normally used to refer to raw and unprocessed data. And the information is the results we get after processing this data. And this information, for example, can then be used to draw conclusions or make decisions. So the information that we obtain in one processing stage can actually also be fed again as raw data to the next processing cycle to get new information. So when you think of a computer, you think of an electronic device. But actually this electronic device would be useless if it would not be for the software programs that make it work. So the computer definition includes the electronic device and its components, called hardware, and the computer programs that control it, that are called software. Software can be compared to an instruction booklet of a ready-to-assemble furniture, for example, as it has step-by-step assembly instructions that guide the whole assembly process and indicate how you can make something. Computer hardware, on the other hand, is all the physical components of a computer system. And these can be either located inside the system or outside. Yeah, in case they're outside of the system, they're called peripherals. So, for example, these components that are outside of the computer are a keyboard, a mouse, and other input devices. It's, for example, the CPU, the memory, and other chips needed to connect all the components. We have a monitor, a printer, and any other output device we can think of. There is a hard disk, a DVD unit, flash memory drives that can be used to store information permanently. There are the communication devices that are used to connect to a local or remote network, like we can have network cards or modems. And we have all the support electronics needed to make the system run, so as power supply, cable buses, cooling fans, etc. So, in the beginning of personal computers, installing some new hardware in our computer would be a nightmare. And because some hardware configuration was necessary, and we maybe had to change micro switches, for example, and we had to execute many configuration programs in order to make sure that the hardware would be installed in the correct way. Today, most hardware devices and modern personal computers have operating systems, and they include some form of plug-and-play capability that manage automatically most of the processes that you need to configure a new hardware that you add to your personal computer. Manual hardware installation might sometimes be needed, but this is only in occasions when you're using some specialized system that is running an operating system derived from Unix, for example, like some Linux distributions have. Computer hardware gets obsolete very fast, and some material that is used in its manufacturing can be actually a big source of waste and pollution. So there are several initiatives nowadays that try to minimize or eliminate the impact on the environment. The impact on the environment when we design, manufacture, use and dispose of computers and servers. So these initiatives are commonly known as green computing, or green ICT, green IT, or ICT sustainability, whose objective is try to minimize and eliminate the impact of the environment when we dispose of all this hardware. So as we indicated, a computer is useless without a computer program that instructs it how to process data and manage the devices. And computer software allows computers to perform specific tasks or applications. So in a computer, basically, there's two types of software. One is the system software and the other is the application software. So the main system software is the operating system, and the operating system is loaded when we start up the computer, and its objective is to manage the interaction of the user and all application software and the hardware devices on the computer. So it will, for example, manage the access to files, and it will orchestrate the execution of different programs. So the other type of software as compared to system software is application software. Application software is the software that is created to develop specific tasks, and we can think, for example, of word processing, creating spreadsheets, designing slideshows, calculating the stresses of a building, or browsing the internet. So, as we have described with hardware, installing new software in the early days of computing could also be quite a tricky task, but nowadays most software programs are just distributed with an automated tool that's called an installation wizard, and this just guides the user through an easy installation process. All computers basically work following an information processing cycle, and this information processing cycle is known as IPOS, which stands for Input, Processing, Output, Storage, as we can see here on this slide. So, first, what the computer needs is data to be entered into the system. This is the input. And for this, the computer has specific hardware known as input devices that you use to input data into the system. Think, for example, of a keyboard or a scanner. So then when this input is there, the computer performs some operation on this data, which is the processing. And this has been done by the Central Processing Unit, or the CPU. And after we finish all this processing, the computer presents the results to the user. And this is the output. And for this, it also uses specific hardware, which is called output devices. And think, for example, of a monitor or a printer. So the results of all this processing can also be stored for future use. And this is the storage part of the IPOS cycle. And the storage just means saving the data, saving the programs, or saving any other output for future use. For this, the computer has permanent storage devices, and you can think of in the internal hard disk or removable disks such as pen drives. And these storage devices so have input and output functions. So in this video we have seen what is a computer and what are the most important components of it.